So that's the first thing that we need to think about when we talk about generating value through a return is first we got to identify an appropriate strategy, one that's appropriate for our business model, and we got to talk about and understand the mechanism so that we're sure that this strategy is actually going to be effective for our business. The second thing we then got to talk about with each of these strategies, and again, scalability or economies of scale is just one strategy. We'll talk about a bunch more. But the second thing we want to talk about, once we've identified this strategy per se, is we need to understand how sustainable that strategy is. Because having a strategy to create value is all well and good, but it's not enough, right? If we, whatever strategy we undertake to create value, if it's successful, it's going to be eventually attempted to be copied by our competitors, right? So what we're looking for is not only a strategy that creates value, but one that generates a sustainable competitive advantage, right? So sometimes this is created naturally just by the very nature of the business. So you can look at this graph here, and we've got a couple of different things on the graph. We've got a couple of different industry sectors, one being the pharmaceutical industry, one being consumer goods, and one being commodities. Right now, you can see that we're graphing here return on the left-hand side on the y-axis. So this is graphing the level of return over time for all of these different industries. And you can see that the pharmaceutical industry has historically enjoyed a very high return on invested capital, ranging between 20 or 30% over the last, say, 20 years, 15, 20 years. And this because a number of reasons, but the biggest reason is that pharmaceuticals have a sustainable competitive advantage. Once they produce a successful product, right, once they have a drug that actually works and is sellable, they enjoy patent protection on that drug, so it can't be copied. Right? So they have a strategy to create value through high return, which is that they create a unique product. And then they also have a strategy to sustain the competitive advantage through that, which is that they patent that product so that it can't be copied for 20 years. Right? Now, that's not to say the pharmaceutical industry is just making tons of money. Of course, there's huge costs involved with researching and producing these drugs. Lots of pharmaceutical companies just go bankrupt, go belly up, because they never find a drug that's that successful. But the ones that end up continuing to find successful drugs do enjoy a high return. Whereas you can see that, say, things like consumer goods don't enjoy as high of a return. It is still pretty good return, 20 to 15%, give or take. And this is because there's a lot of turnover there, but depending on the company, they find a sustainable advantage through lots of different strategies that we'll talk about later. And then down on the bottom, you see commodities, and you see the commodities have lots of big swings, right? And these are cyclical swings. They're swinging with the market. So the sustainable competitive advantage in the commodity sector, and a commodity is a hard good, a sellable good like ore, like grain, like oil. These are all changing over time. So in some periods, they enjoy a really high return because the economy's chugging along and everybody needs their product. And then times like now, none of the commodities are making any money. Oil has crashed, copper has crashed. All kinds of these products have crashed because the demand for them is quite low. So they don't have a sustainable competitive advantage because they don't enjoy just a really sort of across the board high level of return. Right? So at each, we're going to talk about a bunch of different strategies to create value here. And at each step, we're going to ask ourselves a couple of things. But the main one is going to be, so the first one is going to be, what is this strategy generating for us? Right? How is this strategy working? Is it effective? And then we're going to rank the strategies based on how sustainable they are. Right? So it doesn't do me any good if I do something weird and I generate a really high return for 6 months and then all my competitors copy me and we're back to where we started, right? Because essentially I've wasted money developing this strategy, or developing or implementing this strategy, and then it was copied and I can't do anything, right? So being sustainable is what makes a strategy or a choice by the firm successful or not. So we'll talk about the different strategies and we'll rank them according to these criteria. So one of the things we might ask ourselves now is, given that we've looked at the strategy for high returns that eBay had, which is that they have a very they enjoy high economies of scale. The question for us now would be, is that strategy sustainable? So does eBay enjoy a sustainable competitive advantage? And I think the answer is pretty clearly yes, right? The fact that a giant marketplace, the fact that eBay became a giant marketplace is its competitive advantage, right? If you have 1 million people buying and selling products, then anybody that wants to sell something is going to be naturally attracted to this giant marketplace, right? It's going to be a lot easier to get noticed and to find a sale, or from the buyer side, it's going to be a lot easier to find what you're trying to buy if you go to the biggest marketplace than if you just set up shop on the side of the road and hope you get seen, right? The big markets, the big flea markets, the big stores, those are the places where it's most likely that you're going to find what you want. And so this gigantic marketplace that eBay set up is self-sustaining, and it's self-sustaining in an organic way because people want to keep coming to eBay. And even if they get fed up or they have a bad experience, they keep going back because they don't have a better option. There isn't another marketplace out there that's comparable, right? So that's part of what we're going to do. That's how we're going to incorporate these ideas. We're going to say, okay, here's the strategy. How does it work? Is it effective? Is it sustainable? Why is it sustainable? And that's how we're going to rank all these different strategies.